urban environments are wonders of the modern world, home to vibrant, diverse, growing communities. In the UK alone, over 84% of the population live in our towns and cities. Since 1990, there has been an increase in urban areas of over 3,000 kilometres square, almost the size of Cornwall. And the UK has become one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world. This rapid growth is to the detriment of our natural green spaces. This also means we are at greater risk from the impacts of climate change. Extreme weather means more frequent storms, increased flooding, hotter and more frequent heat waves. In the towns and cities we all live in, when it rains, the water has nowhere to go. When it's hot, there is no natural shade. We are losing our connection to nature and the vital benefits it can bring to our mental health and well-being. The impact of climate change increases the risk to our homes, businesses, and the infrastructure we take for granted. We are in the midst of a climate emergency. We need to work together to ensure our towns and cities are resilient to the effects of climate change. For our towns and cities to remain the vibrant, safe, sustainable places we know and love, we must act now. Fortunately, the wheels are in motion for real change.
We have commenced the Ignition project, which is looking at finding innovative ways of financing investment in our natural capital.
2 years ago, the Ignition project was launched, a groundbreaking project that focuses on how we can work with nature to provide solutions to the climate emergency, building the resilience of our towns and cities. The Ignition project is developing business models to make the case for investment in large-scale environmental projects, increasing urban nature-based solutions across Greater Manchester. Nature-based solutions like rain gardens, street trees, green roofs and living walls provide a huge range of benefits, from reducing flood risk to improving air quality and enhancing health and well-being. Ignition is tackling some of the biggest environmental challenges of our time by understanding how we better value nature. Supported by the EU's Urban Innovative Actions Initiative, Ignition brings together 12 partners to collaborate, share knowledge, identify innovative solutions, and drive change. The success of the Ignition project will help Greater Manchester's urban environment become greener, healthier, and a more sustainable place to live. All thanks to a spark ignited in 2019. To help the Ignition project better understand nature-based solutions and their benefits, the University of Salford has built a world-leading living laboratory. We all know a lab is where research takes place, in an artificial environment. A living lab is where the research takes place in the real world, where the public can contribute, and where multiple stakeholders, businesses, developers, and local governments are actively engaged. This living lab is a flagship site for the Ignition project. It's where groundbreaking nature-based solutions are installed and monitored. Whilst most nature-based solutions installations sit alone, the installation at the University of Salford's Peel Park campus is fully connected. Different monitoring sensors measure heat, water flow, and soil moisture across the site, providing real-time data for researchers. The researchers can then measure the effect of the installed solutions on building heat performance, biodiversity, and human interaction. At the centre of the site, rainwater is channeled into 2 underground attenuation tanks. They collect and store excess water to be used by the automatic irrigation system. The tanks hold enough water to enable all the plant life to thrive, regardless of the weather. The irrigation system uses data from the water and soil sensors across the site to identify which areas need water at any time. The site can hold a total of 70,000 litres of water, the equivalent to more than 2 swimming pools. This is water that would have otherwise become wasted as surface runoff into our wastewater network and waterways. But here, it's used to support a huge amount of plant life at no extra cost, whilst also helping to reduce flooding in the urban environment. Most of the solutions are pre-made off-site, creating the added bonus that on arrival, it's just a matter of putting them in place. These solutions are especially beneficial in towns and cities, as they reduce disruption on site. The Living Lab can be separated into 4 distinct areas: the green wall, the green roof, sustainable drainage trees, and the rain garden. Join us on a virtual tour of each area. The green wall is 13.5 metres high at its tallest point. It has 4 different planted sections: the biodiversity wall, which provides a range of habitats, the seasonal wall, which provides year-round interest, the pollinator wall, which attracts insects, and finally, the edible section. This gives a total living wall area of 185 metres squared. Whilst this sounds like it should be very heavy, the whole wall is mounted on a lightweight steel frame that rests on its own floating foundation, so no weight is being held by the building. This allows a living wall to be installed on almost any type of building. The mass of plant life and soil help to insulate the building and cool the air around it. Sensors here help to calculate the energy savings to the building. Green walls provide a great opportunity to integrate nature into our urban environment, where space is at a premium. This wall is home to 5,800 planted pots. If laid out flat, this would fill a tennis court. The biodiversity and pollinator sections incorporate bird boxes and bug boxes to attract insect and wildlife, a building block of life. Across the site, we find 3 connected trees planted in sustainable drainage systems, or SUDs. Some of the SUDs are visible above ground, whilst others are partially buried. These systems will provide data on soil moisture and how water travels between the systems. Specially selected trees sit in tree pits. Made from a 100% recycled plastic permavoid structure, they are built like a honeycomb to hold onto the soil whilst providing aeration and room for root growth. The base of the tree pit contains a reservoir of water connected to the soil by a fabric that draws up moisture when needed, so the tree waters itself. This design incorporates useful seating areas, which even have plug sockets, so students can sit and work al fresco. When grown, the canopy will add to the shaded areas available on campus, whilst also improving air quality, capturing carbon, and creating new habitats. The green roof is split into 7 areas. An area of sedum, a type of perennial plant with thick, succulent leaves and fleshy stems, wildflowers and perennials. A brown roof. This is an area left to self-vegetate through natural seed dispersal. A lightweight tree pit, raised planters, a climber wall, and a traditional living wall. All this sits on a multi-layered floor, the bottom of which is a drainage layer, allowing water to run off the roof. This is topped by water-absorbent tiles, between which there is an irrigation system that can pump water to the plants when needed. This green roof has been fitted to an existing building, so there are certain weight restrictions that had to be considered. Each square metre of roof can hold 75 kilograms. This means that the tree pit has to be very light. It sits within a recycled plastic permavoid honeycomb structure like the Suds trees elsewhere in the Living Lab. A 5-metre radius around the tree pit is kept empty, keeping the average weight within the requirements of the roof. The tree species was selected as it won't grow too big or heavy for the roof. Its size will be limited by the size of the container it grows in. The building can hold up to 50 millimetres of soil. Whilst this doesn't seem that deep, the plant life will thrive because of the automatic watering system fed from the irrigation tank below. The brown roof area contains wood piles, rubble mounds and pebble mounds to provide habitats for invertebrates such as woodlice, centipedes and other insects. Whilst not as pretty to look at as the planted areas, providing a home for invertebrates increases the biodiversity benefits of the roof. Data collected from the roof will help understand how green roofs can improve insulation and reduce energy costs, as well as how it captures rainfall and influences biodiversity. The rain garden is designed around 4 downpipes from the adjacent building. Each downpipe has a different design, including a rain chain and transparent pipes. Rainwater from 3 of the downpipes flows into an underground tank, where it is stored and distributed as needed. The 4th downpipe flows directly into a rain garden that contains a variety of plants that can tolerate both flood and drought conditions. The raised deck area and the accessible permeable paving allows rainfall to percolate through to the ground, where it can flow freely into the irrigation harvesting tanks. Within the system, there are 6 raised planters and 3 sunken planters. All are hydrologically linked with their own reservoir. Some of the planting is edible, and all of the planters are providing data on how they use water. Even an existing outdoor shelter has been greened with living walls and a green roof to highlight how non-traditional buildings, such as bush shelters, can become a habitat for biodiversity. An existing tree was incorporated into the design. Around this tree, there is planting that sits on an irrigation pad that absorbs water like a sponge. It involved no digging to install. The new Suds tree is similar to the others on site, sitting in a 100% recycled plastic permavoid structure that holds the soil and provides aeration and room for the tree roots to grow without being squashed. At the end of the rain garden is a shallow pond filled with an empty plastic structure to store water. When it rains, this becomes a water feature. The Ignition project is progressing research into how nature-based solutions can provide a return on investment. The research carried out at the Living Lab will provide evidence of the value the various nature-based solutions can bring. A complex network of sensors throughout the site will help researchers understand how these nature-based solutions perform on water management, energy reductions, increasing biodiversity, and how these solutions add to human comfort. By monitoring how water is captured, then directed through the nature-based solutions across the site. Researchers can study how these systems will help limit flooding and reuse rainwater to feed an array of plant life. This stops water pooling up in built-up areas, causing flooding or running into and overloading the sewerage network. As we see increased rainfall from climate change, this research will be crucial in adapting our towns and cities. Monitoring of how the green roof and wall provide extra insulation and cool the air around them will show how these structures can provide energy savings that could contribute towards the cost of installing them. By monitoring biodiversity, the Living Lab will increase understanding of how nature-based solutions can restore nature in our towns and cities. And finally, by researching the human interaction with these systems, they will further the understanding of our relationship with nature. The Ignition Project and the University of Salford's Nature-Based Solutions Living Lab are building understanding of how restoring nature, particularly in our urban environments, provides value to our lives, our businesses, and our communities. By better understanding the benefits of nature-based solutions and finding ways to derive income from them, the Ignition Project is building the case for investment in nature across Greater Manchester. Reducing local flood risk provides an obvious financial benefit to businesses and property owners, but nature-based solutions can provide much more than this. They can provide insulation, reducing energy bills, capture carbon, increase property value, improve health and well-being, enhance biodiversity, and improve air quality. Increasing our understanding of how it's possible to capture the value of these benefits is at the heart of Ignition. The Living Lab brings together science, data, and real-life nature-based solutions to help build investor confidence, supporting progress towards a point when investment in nature across our cities and towns is business as usual. Communities play a key role in how we incorporate nature into our urban environments, how it's valued, maintained, and managed. The Ignition Project have been engaging widely with citizens across Greater Manchester to find out how much they understand about nature-based solutions, how they use and value their green spaces, and how they are able to support their development and maintenance across the city region. 97% of people the project surveyed thought that climate change is a risk to Greater Manchester. But few people recognise the benefits that nature-based solutions can provide in tackling the climate emergency. By 2022, the Ignition Project will have engaged over 5,000 citizens, building greater understanding and empowering them to become advocates for nature-based solutions to climate change. In order to drive change at the scale needed for nature-based solutions to provide real resilience to climate change, we need to bring everyone with us. Citizens, property owners, investors, businesses, planners, local and national government. Ignition has built on a spark of inspiration to ignite commitment to transform Greater Manchester into a resilient and green city region. In the same way that the Living Lab is delivering greater impact by connecting systems, we too can achieve more by building connections and working together.